News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Erica Herskowitz. Turmoil in the Middle East sparked fresh losses in stocks today. The Dow plunged 447 points, down nearly 1%. The Nasdaq fell 443 points, down 2%. The S&P lost 100 points, closing more than 1.5% lower. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.39%. The 2-year Treasury yield at 3.89%. Brent crude futures extended gains to a session-high $112 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate, $98 a barrel, after a CBS report saying Pentagon officials have made detailed preparations for deploying U.S. ground troops into Iran. The network is citing multiple sources briefed on the discussions, saying senior military commanders have submitted specific requests. U.S. officials say the White House is sending hundreds of Marines to the Middle East as it weighs a plan to seize Iran's Karg Island oil export hub. Speaking to reporters outside of the White House today, Trump wasn't willing to tip his hand.
I may have a plan or I may not, but how would I ever say that to a reporter? If I said that to a reporter, Marco would say, please, sir, let's bring you over to the helicopter immediately, right? No, I can't tell you that. It's certainly a place that people are talking about, but I can't say yeah.
Iran is refusing to even consider reopening the Strait of Hormuz while it's at war. Jen Gavito, a former Near East official at the State Department, says Iran's regime is digging in.
It doesn't take a lot for Iran to continue to disrupt, whether it's drones, whether it's mines. And so now that this has been unleashed, restoring the confidence that Iran will not utilize those tactics in the future, I think is going to be a very, very hard sell, regardless of what we do militarily.
Hear more from Jen Gavito on the Bloomberg Balance of Power podcast. President Trump expressed frustration today with military allies for not joining the war on Iran or helping to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. Trump hit at, quote, cowardly allies as the Islamic Republic keeps up its attacks on Gulf energy assets. The war is triggering a surge in oil and gas prices and has caused significant damage to energy supplies, with Qatar saying almost a fifth of its LNG production has been knocked out for as long as 5 years. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall at the White House on what potentially lies ahead in the Iran war.
At this point, there are still some questions here about exactly how a potential operation would take place, though Axios is reporting that the U.S. would look to degrade Iran's military capabilities around the Strait of Hormuz further before launching any potential operation there. This comes as the disruptions in the Strait continue, and we heard the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just yesterday suggest in an interview that Karg Island could become a U.S. asset. In his words, just for context here, Karg Island ships out about 90% of Iranian crude exports, and imagery analyzed by Bloomberg shows that for the most part, those loadings have continued unabated.
Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller said today he's cautious about how surging oil prices on the back of the Iran war will impact inflation, though a weak jobs market may still warrant interest rate cuts later this year. Speaking to CNBC, Waller warns oil can bleed through to core inflation at some point.
So that's one of the critical things that I started thinking about. This inflation problem may be worse than I think it is if this continues. Now, we'll wait and see. We don't know where this is going to go. But we have to sort of think maybe caution is warranted.
Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller speaking to CNBC. Fed officials this week left interest rates unchanged and continued to expect one rate cut this year as they acknowledged increased uncertainty due to the war in the Middle East. President Trump today released a national framework for regulating artificial intelligence. It lays the groundwork for Congress to create a federal standard for rapidly growing technology. The framework, which builds upon Trump's December executive order, among other things, calls for online safeguards for children. The Justice Department is suing Harvard University for violating Jewish students' civil rights in the Trump administration's latest attack on the elite university. In the suit filed today in Boston federal court, the government claims Harvard failed to protect Jewish students from alleged antisemitism during protests that followed the October 7th Hamas terrorist attacks in Israel and the subsequent war in Gaza. And Chuck Norris, martial arts master and actor whose toughness became internet lore, is dead at 86.
I ask you a question.
Well, what if we don't tell you?
You're going to die either way.
The details surrounding his death are being kept private at the family's request. Norris was best known for his roles in action movies like The Way of the Dragon, in which he co-starred with Bruce Lee, and the CBS show Walker, Texas Ranger, which ran from 1993 to 2001. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Erica Herskowitz, and this is Bloomberg.